what's the real cost of not healing from our past? We're going to explore a pretty powerful journey today, one that goes from a state of being completely stuck, just stagnant, to a life that's actually filled with purpose. It all starts with the quiet daily struggle of someone who felt like they were just fading away.
This single idea, this is really the core of the story. For a woman named Emily, this wasn't some kind of metaphor. It was her reality, day in and day out. It's that feeling when not moving forward becomes this heavy, heavy weight that just slowly drains the life right out of you. So this is our starting point.
Okay, so what does a life of stagnation actually feel like, on a daily basis? To really get the cost of not healing, we've got to look at that day-to-day experience. Let's break down what Emily's world actually looked like.
For Emily, every single day was this monumental struggle. She'd wake up already exhausted, just completely overwhelmed by the thought of the day ahead. She had no energy for even the most basic things, like eating or working. Her whole world had just shrunk down to this relentless cycle of feeling isolated, sad, and in pain. That's such a heavy weight to carry.
This chart, wow, it just lays it all out, doesn't it? On one side, you have the pillars of her life in stagnation, exhausted, overwhelmed, isolated, and in pain. But look at the other side, that living column, it's completely empty. And that brings up a really important question. What's the alternative? What's supposed to fill those empty spaces? The rest of this journey is all about finding out.
But here's the thing, right? Even when you're in that deep, deep stagnation, sometimes a single step can change absolutely everything. For Emily, a little glimmer of hope appeared, and it started with something super simple from a friend.
The catalyst for change wasn't some big complex program or diagnosis. Nope, it was just a friend suggesting, hey, why don't you try meditation? And she was hesitant, for sure, but she was also desperate for anything to change, so she said okay. It's a great reminder that sometimes the simplest ideas can be the most revolutionary ones.
And get this, she didn't commit to some huge, intimidating practice. She started with just a few minutes a day. This is such a key insight. Making that first step accessible and manageable is absolutely crucial. It wasn't about overhauling her entire life at once, but just about planting one tiny little seed of a new habit.
So how did that tiny daily practice actually start to build momentum? Well, it became the foundation for a whole series of steps that began to create real, actual change in her life.
Her healing process really unfolded in 3 pretty clear stages. It kicked off with daily meditation, just to calm all those overwhelming emotions. From there, she started moving into active self-care, taking small, positive actions just for herself. And finally, she broke that awful cycle of isolation by reaching out and connecting with friends. Notice how these aren't huge, dramatic gestures, right? They're small, repeatable actions that build on each other.
So what did self-care really mean for Emily? That word gets thrown around a lot. For her, it was a mix of both gentle actions and, some really difficult internal work. It was things like taking walks in nature and cooking healthy meals, but it was also doing the hardest part, finally confronting those painful memories and emotions she'd spent years avoiding.
Okay, so all of those small, consistent efforts, the meditation, the self-care, the connection, they all led to this profound turning point. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was actually starting to live.
And this idea right here, this is everything. This is the core of the transformation. That shift from passively surviving each day to actively and consciously living. It's the difference between being a passenger in your own life and, actually getting in the driver's seat. She wasn't just enduring her pain anymore. She was actively creating her own joy.
All right, so let's go back to that chart from earlier. Remember the empty living column? Well, we can finally fill it in. And what a difference. Exhausted gets replaced by feeling alive. Overwhelmed is replaced by a sense of being in control. Isolated gives way to being purposeful. And pain is replaced by joyful. It's just a complete 180 shift in her entire inner world.
But here's a really crucial insight. This transformation, it wasn't a destination she just arrived at one day. Healing isn't about being fixed. It's about understanding that the process itself becomes a new way of living. It's a journey, not a final stop. We can see the entire path laid out right here. It all begins with that realization, acknowledging the real cost of not healing. That leads to the first small step, which then blossoms into a consistent daily practice.
And that practice doesn't just end. It becomes a whole new way of life, an ongoing journey. This really gets to the heart of what healing truly is. It's not a one-time event that you just get through and you're done. It's this continuous journey of showing up for yourself one step at a time. For Emily, this wasn't an endpoint at all. It was the beginning of a commitment to take that journey for the rest of her life.
Emily's story is just such a powerful reminder of our capacity to heal and transform. I mean, her entire journey began with one small step away from stagnation, and it kind of leaves all of us with a question to reflect on. What journey is waiting for you to begin?